In 1915, Einstein published General Relativity, our theory of gravity and the large-scale structure of the universe. It's been tested thousands of times, never failed once. In 1925, quantum mechanics emerged, our theory of atoms and subatomic particles. Tested millions of times, never failed once. There's just one problem. Physicists cannot unify them without losing explanatory power. But what if this isn't a bug? What if it's a feature? What if reality is supposed to work this way? Because this same pattern, irreducible complementary principles, appears everywhere. And I mean everywhere. Let me show you what I mean. In physics, we have general relativity and quantum mechanics, entropy and negentropy, wave and particle, matter and field, dark matter and dark energy. In biology, we have genetics and epigenetics. The DNA code is one thing. How genes get expressed is something else entirely. You need both. Neither reduces to the other. In neuroscience, we have brain and consciousness, physical neurons and subjective experience. The hard problem of consciousness exists because these two aspects are both real and both irreducible. 7 independent domains, the same structural pattern. Why? This is not for lack of genius. Einstein himself spent the last 30 years of his life searching for a unified theory. Thousands of physicists since have pursued the same goal through string theory, quantum gravity, causal steps, and dozens of other frameworks. Some of the most mathematically sophisticated minds in history have attacked this problem. The theories have been refined, extended, reformulated. New mathematics has been invented. Entire research programs have been built, sustained, and sometimes abandoned. And still, the two frameworks remain distinct. Not provisionally, not temporarily, but persistently, across generations, across paradigm shifts, across the entire history of modern physics. The pattern holds, the opposition refuses to collapse. But here's what almost no one has noticed. This is not an isolated problem. As we've already touched on, the same pattern appears everywhere. Take wave or particle. For more than a century, every experiment has forced a choice. Observe light's interference pattern, and it behaves as a wave, spreading, diffracting, exhibiting phase relationships. Detect individual photons, and it behaves as a particle, localized, discrete, countable. Both descriptions are indispensable. Neither can be eliminated. Quantum mechanics has formalized this complementarity with mathematical precision, yet the underlying duality remains as stark as ever. Or consider entropy and order. The second law of thermodynamics tells us that closed systems inevitably increase in entropy. Energy disperses, gradients flatten, structure decay towards equilibrium. Yet everywhere we look, we find pockets of astonishing order, stars burning steadily for billions of years, galaxies maintaining coherent spiral structure, living organisms building and repairing themselves with relentless precision. Both poles, global decay and local order, are jointly necessary to explain the universe we inhabit. The same opposition appears in biology. DNA provides the genetic code, the informational blueprint for life, but the code alone determines nothing. Epigenetic regulation, chemical modifications, chromatin structure, regulatory networks controls when, where, and how genes are expressed. You can sequence an entire genome and still not predict the organism's phenotype without knowing its epigenetic state. Neither pole reduces to the other. The pattern appears at every scale. Dark matter provides the gravitational scaffolding that holds galaxies together. Dark energy drives the accelerating expansion of space itself. Together, they constitute 95% of the universe's mass-energy budget. Both are empirically necessary. Neither reduces to the other. The cosmos itself exhibits the pattern. And in consciousness studies, the same structure appears. Neuroscience maps the brain with increasing precision. We can correlate neural patterns with conscious states, track information flow, identify decision-making circuits. Yet neural description captures objective, measurable processes, the physical substrate. Subjective experience, what it feels like to see red, to experience pain, to choose, these remain irreducible. This is the hard problem of consciousness. Brain and mind, mechanism and experience, both necessary, neither sufficient alone. These are not temporary gaps waiting to be filled. They are not artifacts of incomplete science or insufficient mathematics. The pattern has persisted across theoretical revolutions, across paradigm shifts, across a century of sustained unification attempts. They are structural features of reality. Now, before you say you're just seeing twos everywhere, that's not what this is. I'm not talking about the number two. I'm talking about a specific relational structure. Each of these instances exhibits one of two relational logics. Asymmetric dependence, where one pole is prior and the other presupposes it, like entropy and negentropy. Local order presupposes the existence of global entropy. And mutual constitution, where both poles are coprimordial and each defines the other, like wave and particle. Neither is more fundamental. Now I know what you're thinking. Lots of things come in pairs. You have hot and cold, left and right, up and down. And you're correct. And this is why I've developed a test, the explanatory indispensability test. So for any instance, to count as what I term a load-bearing twofold, it has to satisfy 5 criteria. So let's have a look at these. So you have distinctness, where the two poles must be genuinely different. You have joint necessity, both required to explain the phenomenon. Irreducibility, one cannot be reduced to the other without loss. Explanatory centrality, the distinction does real work and is central to the theory. We have empirical persistence, so it survives theoretical revolutions. Hot or cold would fail this test, whereas wave particle would pass it. So here's the question that should bother you. Why does this pattern recur across domains that have no causal connection to each other? Quantum mechanics didn't cause genetics. Consciousness didn't cause entropy. These are independent scientific domains, yet they all exhibit the same relational structure, the same two logics. Why is this? First option is that it's just a coincidence. All these independent domains just happen to need the same explanatory architecture. Second option is that it's a cognitive artifact. Our brains impose twofold patterns because that's how we think. And third option is that reality itself has this structure. The pattern appears everywhere because it's reflecting something about the fundamental nature of existence. Here's where it gets interesting. In the 19th century, a British theologian named Robert Garrett was analysing scripture using a specific method, identify oppositions, resist premature resolution, seek the relational logic. He found twofolds everywhere: law and grace, word and spirit, faith and works, sovereignty and responsibility. Gabet died in 1901, before quantum mechanics, before general relativity, before the discovery of DNA. Yet he identified the exact same relational pattern in theology that modern science would discover. How did this come to be? Over this video series, I'm going to argue for a specific thesis. The pervasive explanatory twofoldness we observed is best explained by an ultimate reality that is itself a differentiated unity, a single essence internally structured by irreducible relational distinctions, and that this metaphysical hypothesis finds its most coherent instantiation in the Christian doctrine of the Trinity. One God, three persons, eternally related through begetting, procession, and mutual indwelling. The same relational logics that structure creation. In the next video, I'm going to take you deep into general relativity and quantum mechanics. I'll show you exactly why unification has failed and why that failure is actually evidence for the thesis. So if you think we may be onto something interesting here, do stick around, because if this pattern is real, it changes everything.